Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert with Brother Bro. It's time to review The Eyes of Tammy Faye. The film is about televangelist Tammy Faye and Jim Bakker and their rise and fall from televangelist glory. And of course we have Jessica Chastain in the lead role playing Tammy Faye and Andrew Garfield playing Jim Bakker. And boy howdy, are these performances absolutely going for it, especially Chastain. She is just the main reason to see this movie, and probably the main reason it even exists is like as an Oscar vehicle for her. The entire movie is literally just a massive Oscar clip for Jessica Chastain. She is absolutely extraordinary in this. I mean, I think this might be her best performance ever. It's also like the most acting that you're gonna see this entire year. Like, she cries, she is covered in makeup, she has a funny weird laugh, a funny voice, and she sings while crying. It's everything that you need to do to win an Oscar. Before you say this is too over the top, like, is she giving us too much? I do not think she's giving you too much. I thought her portrayal here was perfect. Tammy Faye just seems like a very extroverted, effusive personality, and Chastain pays tribute to all of her really positive qualities. She makes you like a character that I also feel very conflicted with, but I feel like that's the actor's job. Even if you're playing a controversial figure, you should fall as closely in love with the character as you possibly can. She played it with such empathy and compassion. I didn't think a note of it felt disingenuous. And I think they did give us a lot of reasons to really like Tammy Faye, which is not something I was totally expecting. It's interesting because the film's sympathies don't necessarily lie with these televangelists or with even Christianity. I think there's an obvious attempt to show you how absurd this empire that they built was. But at the same time, it never makes fun of Tammy Faye. I could even see people accusing it of letting her off the hook a little too easily, if anything. Tammy Faye was somebody who was kind of made fun of and mocked a lot on TV. So it's almost like I, Tonya, where most of America has an opinion on Tammy Faye if they know her, and it's a negative one. And yet this movie dares to celebrate the qualities of Tammy Faye that maybe we should have been celebrating all along. She genuinely seemed determined to bring good and love into the world, even if that meant defying some of the predominant beliefs of the church or televangelists at the time, especially when it came to saying that like God loves homosexuals. This is also a story of the accumulation of massive wealth in America, and I was really invested in it for that reason, because the way in which they became so wealthy was so controversial. Televangelists basically told their audience that it's important for God and for their religion and for fighting, you know, the liberal agenda to funnel money into their program. Now, while Tammy Faye's show didn't necessarily go against the liberal agenda as it's stated in this film, it all went to building a quote-unquote Christian empire, which included such absurd feats as a Christian water park. This also tied into politics, where the Republican Party knew that their voters were watching these shows, and so the TV hosts were encouraged to placate to the platform of the Republican Party, you know, again, showing how religion and politics are so intertwined, which we see today as well. Even the wealth that Tammy Faye and Jim Bakker accumulated, receiving these absurdly high salaries from selling products in their show, it speaks to the greed and gluttony of that top 0.1% in the United States. There were a lot of really interesting aspects to this story, though I don't think the film went far enough in indicting America and like that Christian capitalism that we saw here. I would have liked to see that put more on center stage. While Jim Bakker really is put on like the hot seat, Tammy Faye is portrayed more as like someone who was just passively like kind of accepting everything as it came and was very happy to receive these things, but wasn't ultimately responsible. Like, hey, if I'm getting the money, then, you know, I'll take it. I think people will have a problem with the film letting her off too easy, and I do understand that. At the same time, though, I understand where Tammy Faye would be coming from and thinking like, okay, well, I'm just getting what I deserve. What we have here is more of a portrait of a personality, and these things happening outside that I thought were really interesting were a little too on the peripheral. It could have talked more about like the morality of who they're taking the money from, like you're saying. But I also agreed for the most part with the approach of being mostly kind of from Tammy Faye's perspective. The movie doesn't really try to like wag a finger at her or wink at the audience and say like, isn't she like kind of dumb? I think the movie is really challenging you to just focus on Chastain's performance and her humanization of Tammy Faye and make of that what you will. Most likely you'll come away with something positive from it. I completely agree, but then there's the question of what's the value in making this film?
if you're just going to do it to put Tammy Faye on this pedestal.
I thought that it was critical of her for sure, and it's also like something that most people already feel critical of her, so I don't think the movie needs to tell you what to think. I also enjoyed the movie just for being like funny and for having a weird tone. Like, we don't get characters like this on film a lot because they're kind of inherently unlikable. I do believe in Jesus, I do, and he can help you. I just found it so interesting to actually let them have the floor for 2 hours.
That's a weird thing to say because they've had the floor on their television show forever.
Okay, well, maybe for me personally, I don't really get like into those people. I don't get their perspective, but it also let you laugh at them if you wanted to, because sometimes they were just fucking funny. Andrew Garfield and Jessica Chastain are just so committed to these weird characters that you're just gonna laugh sometimes at how they say things. They fill every other sentence with laughter whenever they don't know what to do. They're just like, hee. And it's great.
But see, with the whole way we're talking about it as this kind of fun movie that's a little bit innocent towards like broader problems, is that strange though? Because Christian televangelism was like massively profitable. Churches are not getting taxed. You're not like disgusted by it by the end.
I do agree though that Tammy Faye leaves you more interested in the character rather than leaving the theater and being like, I can't believe America's like this. I can't believe we live in a country where these kind of economic practices and preying on people happens. Because it does happen. It is a relevant topic, but they don't really try to show you how that's relevant to this country.
Right, but what you really get is, here is the character of Tammy Faye in all of her glory and in all of her shades.
And all of her crying, singing,
but I don't know how much we needed that. I also think this film falls into some of the trappings and tropes of biopics, which I do complain about a lot. It had this like more funny and like quirky and campy tone to it that I was enjoying. And again, like it did engage, even if not deeply on some level with the themes I just spoke about, but it was a little bit overlong and it felt like it needed to wrap up much faster than it did.
Yeah, I think the ending is really good, actually. I really liked the very ending, but the 20 minutes before, it's kind of like, where's this movie going?
It had an angle, like we already talked about that, but it wasn't so strong that they knew when to cut out the fat.
I didn't really get into it yet, but Andrew Garfield, I thought, was also really excellent, and I didn't know how much I was going to like him, but he's basically a secondary lead in this. I completely bought him just as much as I bought Jessica Chastain. I thought this was one of Andrew Garfield's best performances. If he's campaigning supporting, which I feel like he probably will be, I don't know how he doesn't get nominated, honestly.
I thought Andrew Garfield was really good and very funny in this film, although I didn't feel the same full immersion I did with Chastain's performance, not just with how far she goes, but with like, I can see the human being through all of this. Jim Baker felt a little more like a character, but he was also someone who you were not supposed to empathize with as much. But I did like his performance a lot. And if he's campaigning supporting actor, I think he would deserve a nomination for it. He technically is a lead, though given how studios usually campaign their performances, it's not weird for this to go supporting.
Not everybody is screaming Garfield's name because it's such a Chastain show. I feel like it's a no-brainer, but maybe it's not.
I feel like if you don't like the movie, you won't care that much for Andrew Garfield.
And Chastain in lead, I mean, I have to say, I left this thinking, holy shit, how do you not win for what she did? How do you not win for that? And it's always on the edge of overdoing it. But because she was so genuinely and honestly invested in this character, it never felt overdone.
And just her performance alone moved me to tears at a couple parts of this film. Like, it was really powerful to see her dive in so deeply. She's at like an 11 out of 10 the entire film. And you feel like she's always like giving so much energy and like soaking everything up. It was very much in the genre of performances that are like Oscar bait. There's so many different kinds of performances, but let's say in terms of Oscar bait performances, this is definitely one of the best I've seen.
If she wins the Oscar, I have no problem with it. I have absolutely no problem with it. But here's the other thing. A whole week ago, we were like, oh, Kristen Stewart, the reviews for Spencer come out. Stewart's out front, and this is going to be... I thought it might have even been easy. And then I watched this, and I'm like, how does she not win? It might just be a close race. It might be a close-ass race, because maybe Spencer is going to be bigger as an all-around awards player, and this movie's getting a little bit more mixed reviews. And then also what could propel her forward is that this is the most Oscar bait fucking performance I've ever seen, and Spencer's a little bit more challenging. So honestly, this could be a very, very fun, exciting race.
I'm really curious to see what I will think after I see Spencer. Having not seen it, I have no choice but to just say she's number one. I have to see something else with my own eyes to believe that it is above this performance in terms of, is it winning the Oscar?
The movie's pretty digestible. I think most audiences are going to have a good time at this one. They're going to like it. I don't think it matters that much that the movie's not like a Best Picture player. The makeup also, I think, is easily going to get nominated. The makeup's really excellent. She had to sit in a chair for hours a day. Even Andrew Garfield's got like little cheeks. But I do think that the cheeks were a little overdone on Jessica Chastain throughout the movie.
They could have shaved off some cheek, but they did a really good job of aging them. So overall, I think the makeup was really effective.
I didn't have a problem with how wide her face was, but it's just like, because it's makeup, it doesn't move when her mouth moves. But like you were saying, I really liked the campy, kitschy style of the movie too. It's like a conference room at a nursing home, which is just weirdly fascinating. Like, I could just watch that all day. I could watch Andrew Garfield and Jessica Chastain be immersed in these weird preacher roles all day.
Overall, this film was really enjoyable. Like, I was entertained and engaged throughout, and Chastain's performance elevated it to the next level. The direction was pretty standard, and the story didn't go that deep. But overall, I felt like it had a good enough angle. And I would give this a solid 7 out of 10.
I liked the movie quite a bit. I just really enjoyed it. Like, I agree with some of the criticisms, and at the same time, I found it endlessly watchable because of Jessica Chastain and her commitment to that character, which was just beautiful. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
When's there a movie coming out about you?